Hey guys, I've been getting a lot of questions about this animation of an illustration that I put up last week, and I thought I'd make a quick tutorial for you. Or maybe I should call it a tut. That's what they're calling them these days, tuts. I'll make a quick tut for you. A precursor, honestly, I haven't figured out the secret sauce to making a good tutorial yet. And honestly, I feel like I'm breaking the cardinal sin right now because people just want to start watching. First things first, you got to prep your files. I personally am not going to go into all the detail on prepping because there's so many good videos that show you how to get your artwork into After Effects. There is one thing though that I did want to talk to you about. I use a plugin called Overlord, and I'll quickly demonstrate what it does and why I use it. Once you get your artwork into a spot where it's ready to go into After Effects, you basically can select an item, an object, and hit this up arrow, and magically it's in After Effects exactly where it was in the artboard on Illustrator. Okay, once you get that original artwork sorted out, prepped for After Effects, then I move into figuring out pose number 2. What I mean by this is in our original artwork, that's considered pose number 1. And then I can move over here to the middle, that is considered pose number 2. And just to be totally truthful with you, I'm not very good at this part. The perspective thing, the drawing thing, not my strong suit. I probably spent an hour just watching my hands, trying to figure out what movement is going to look natural. And I'll show you my progression, and as embarrassing as it is, this was my original pose number 2. Yeah, that's terrible. But what it allows me to do is I see this and I know it's terrible, and then I'm able to start honing it in from there. A lot of people would be able to just pick up a pencil and sketch out what that should look like. Not me, it's just not my strong suit yet. Step number 3. This is where we get to start making things move. For this particular project, I wanted to start with the hand behind the ball. And simply put, the reason that I wanted to start there is because I thought it would be the easiest. And the reason that I look for the easiest thing is because I want my project to start feeling as good as possible, as quick as possible. Does that make sense? I want it to feel really good, really fast, so that I don't get discouraged. That happens sometimes. If I start with the hardest portion of a project, sometimes it just feels like the project is junk. And so, anyways, that's why I started there. So here it is over here. I'm gonna just highlight the elements that I animated one item at a time. There's the thumb, the thumbnail, pointer, middle finger, ring finger, and the pinky. Now, most of these are following, let me open up their keyframes, but most of them are following the same speed except for one finger. And this is so subtle, but it makes a massive difference. For the pinky finger, I actually have it starting its movement 3 frames late and ending its movement 3 frames early. So, although it's hardly noticeable, the ring finger, you'll be able to tell, just has a slightly different motion from the rest of the fingers, and it gives it a very organic and just realistic feel. So as you can see, the hand behind the moon really didn't require many keyframes. It was very simple. So now we can go ahead and add in the moon. It's ready to add that in, and then we can move on to the bottom hand. Okay, for the bottom hand, I broke it up into chunks. You're gonna quickly notice how torn apart, kind of blobbed this whole thing is. But that's honestly what animation is part of the time. It's illusion. And in fact, for this particular project, I called up my friend David Blaine. I was explaining to him that I need people to believe that this is a hand, and he gave me some tricks that I could use. So that's how I got to where I am today. So this is the foundation of my bottom hand. It's horrendous, right? But that doesn't matter because we're about to stack a lot of details on top of this, and you'll never notice those weird glitchy movements because they're all covered up. But you will notice, what you will notice at the bottom of my timeline is you'll see that the foundation of the bottom hand is keyframed like crazy. So I went through frame by frame. I didn't assign a keyframe at every single frame, but I went through and made tweaks along the way. So this is where the project starts to get really hairy and kind of messy. Next up, we have to start adding the fingers and keyframing those. I started with the thumb, so let's add that in. All right, you can see here that it immediately covers up that weird glitchy thing that happens at the bottom of the base hand. As soon as I add in that thumb, it covers it completely up. Then I'll add in the thumbnail and then the wrinkle to show the knuckle. Okay, so adding those other fingers is the exact same process, so I'm just gonna turn those on slowly so you can see them being added in. Now, if I open up one of these, like the thumb, sorry, there we go. If I open this up, you'll see that there are nowhere near as many keyframes as there was in that base hand. And the reason for that is because the shape of the thumb really isn't changing much. It's just a subtle change, but mostly it's just rotation of that thumb that's doing most of the labor. So really not many keyframes needed. Okay, so there is one more thing going on behind the scenes of these fingers. It's a little bit of an advanced technique, but it truly has changed the way that I animate. So if you look over here, you'll see I just have the thumb and I put it on a pink background just so that the stroke and the fill would stand out from each other. And you see here that I actually have no stroke at the base of the thumb. And the purpose of that, of course, is so that it blends in with the rest of the hand. I've got the rest of the hand here. You can see that it just blends right in. But believe it or not, getting this shape without the stroke on the bottom is way harder than you would think. And I can give you an example of that. If I were to, let me remove that. If I were to add a stroke, a generic stroke to the fill, or to this object, you can see that it would go all the way around. I'll change this to black so you can see it more, see it clearly. You would see that that stroke goes all the way around the object. Now that seems like it's okay because you would think that you could just use trim paths and just remove part of the stroke, right? But as soon as you do that, it actually removes the fill as well. They're interconnected. So what we have to do is separate those. So I'm going to delete the trim paths. I'm going to delete the stroke. And I'm going to duplicate this object within that layer. So it's still within the same layer. But I'm going to name this new object bottom thumb outline. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to open that up and we're going to delete the fill because we already have an object with the fill, but we're going to just add stroke in here. So now you'll see, I'm going to change this to black again. You'll see that the stroke, we're back to that same spot, but the difference is that we can actually turn them on and off individually. So I could turn off the fill and just turn on the stroke, or vice versa. And what this allows you to do is then you can add trim paths just to the stroke object. So now we can go into trim paths and remove that, and you'll notice that we can remove it as much as we want, and it's not going to remove the fill object underneath. Okay, so that's a bulk of this project. Once you get those hands to feel good, you are practically done. Then we just had to go in, I'm saying we, I meant I don't know who I'm talking about. Then I just went in and added the background elements, the pink, and then the little, I don't even know what you call that, Adirondack shape thing, and then a border, and then the stars. And for the stars, I'm not gonna go into detail, but I will show you, I just went through each star and adjusted the scale of that particular star so that it would just slowly flicker on and off, or bigger and smaller, smaller and bigger. That's pretty much all. Yeah, that's all that went into it. It took me roughly 5 hours from start to finish, and an hour to 2 hours of that was just figuring out that stupid perspective thing. But I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I haven't been much of a tut maker, but but I wanted to go for it today. I feel like I get a little bit distracted when I'm messing with my computer. I can't think and talk as clearly. But I'd love to know your positive or negative feedback from this. Did you learn anything? Should I go deeper next time? Do I need to talk faster? Just would love to hear all of the feedback. Also, I did the whole tutorial. I drove it all with my Wacom tablet. I'm getting pretty good. Thank you for watching. I will see you next Tuesday.